Welcome to our Playwell Podcast. My name is Sherry Morgan and I'm the Director of Projects at Play Scotland, the national organisation for play. Today our Chief Executive Officer, Marguerite Hunter Blair, speaks to Dr Myae Han, who is a Professor of Early Childhood Education at the University of Delaware. Her research highlights the importance of play in early language and literacy development. I hope you enjoy their conversation.
Welcome, Dr Myae Han, to the Play Scotland Playwell Podcast series. We're absolutely thrilled and delighted to have you with us today. I have been looking at your CV before we came on to chat, and it is so impressive. I am slightly worried that we might have so much to talk about that we won't be able to fit it all in, but I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meeting you.
Myae, you are a Professor of Early Childhood Education at the University of Delaware, and you're particularly interested in play and human development. And one of the things that I was particularly interested in your work was about how play can be used to improve linguistic development in children and young people. And this is something that we've been particularly worried about in Scotland and the UK. Since even before COVID, we noticed developmental delay in children's speech and language, and it has become even more pronounced since COVID. So I wonder if you could share your learning with us about what you have found of what role play can make in improving children's linguistic development.
Yes, thank you for the question. So there is actually a lot of research talking about relationship between play and language and literacy development. I would say that's probably one area compared to like math, science, and other studies. In many of the studies has done in the U.S. context, but I myself, as one of the researcher, I call myself as a play and literacy researcher, and in one of my studies, we found that children, when they play, they seem to be using more advanced languages. Now, so if you think about when they do the dramatic play, pretend play, let's say they pretend to be the mother, father, or if they do the doctor play, they pretend to be a doctor. So I think because of that, they try to speak more advanced languages as if they are an adult. So play provide a context where they can practice languages they might heard from elsewhere. And I think that practice is really important. So that becomes, they acquire more vocabulary, high level of linguistic sentences using a high level of grammar. So I think that's why play is really important for their linguistic development, also literacy development.
So really creating more social play opportunities for children is incredibly important. And we do see that every day. The everyday play is what matters. And Myae, can you tell us what it was that drew you into studying play? I know you've done lots of research over the years, and play does seem to be a big theme in all your work. What stimulated your interest in play?
So actually, I'm only childhood educator, so I know play was important for childhood as an teachers. But besides that, just personally, I think I had a lot of great play experience when I was young. I grew up in Korea in 70s and 80s, and Korea is kind of known for educational push, but my parents were different, and I think I was really fortunate to have my parents. They were not parents really pushing me to study harder. Rather, they thought my health and healthy development was important. So up to late elementary, like 6th grade, they never actually tell me, you must study and you must do your homework. That was more of my responsibility. So I actually got to do a lot of play during that time. And I vividly remember almost every day, as soon as I came back from school, I went out and played with the kids in my neighbors and on the street. And that memory was really stick to me. And I think I learned a lot of social, emotional skills, but also being persistent. And also I have experienced some negative as well as positive experiences as well, like being bullied or excluded. But you learn to overcome those during the play, because play is fun. You want to be part of it. You want to continue to play. I really felt like that experience kind of shaped me, and I felt like I had a lot different experience than my peers. I learned that when I went to middle and then high schools, and I felt like my life was happier. No matter how good you are in your school, your happiness was more important than your grade. So I think that's why I had passion about studying the play. And in my graduate school, I was happy to meet my advisor who was studying play in relation to language and literacy development. So that actually really confirmed me that my early experience was really good. So at this point, I still thank to my parents for that.
And it's funny, we certainly at Play Scotland, we look at what the barriers are for children playing, and particularly playing out. And quite often we highlight the role that parents have to overcoming these barriers, because they are the ones that can give the permission or facilitate the opportunity, maybe even supervise young children until they are sure that they have the confidence and skills to play independently. So the parental role is massive. And very much open to criticism as well, if people perceive them giving their children too much freedom too soon. So it's very interesting, that dynamic, and so interesting that that play memory that you share with us seems to have shaped your whole approach to your life and given you an underpinning happiness in life. And that resilience is something that I think a lot of children and young people strive for now, and it's very hard to develop later on in life. So I think you are indeed very fortunate to get that experience, as you say, not just in your own culture, but in ours. The academic attainment is really important. People understand that the children do well. It opens doors, opportunities in employment. But actually striving for happiness and contentment is just as important, and it's getting that balance right. Myae, there's so many things I'd like to talk about, but one of the things that I have noticed about you is that you have received a Brian Sutton-Smith Award from the Association for the Study of Play only this year. And a lot of us in the play sector have read a lot of Brian Sutton-Smith and have the opportunity to meet him. Have you had that opportunity? And can you tell us a bit about this award?
Yes, actually I did. I think it was my first conference and TASP conference. The TASP stands for the Association for the Study of Play. I think it was 2002, my first conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So Brian was there. I got to meet him. My advisor introduced me to him. And he was a really funny guy, and I think he did a keynote speech at the time. I can't exactly remember what he talked about it, but I knew that I read his book, and I'm teaching a course on play and human development. I actually was inspired by a lot of his work, and he's the one also talking about some of the negative experience in the play and how that actually is helpful to human development. So I teach in my class about one of his theory, that is play is the key to the human development. It helps you with the flexibility, adaptability, especially he called it adaptive variability. No, it's the skill that you need in this fast changing society. So I feel like when I was hearing his perspective on play, that's exactly what I experienced in my life. So this award, Sutton-Smith Award, I believe it was created for his achievement with his name. So every year the TASP elect one scholars to give this award. So I was so fortunate. This award goes to a play scholar who had influenced in the field of play research, but also has shown some leadership to advocate for play. So yeah, I was very honored to receive this award at the conference.
Well, congratulations, because he has been, as you say, an inspiration to so many of us. And his book, The Ambiguity of Play, is worth reading. If anyone's out there listening to the podcast, it's definitely worth getting a copy of his book. One of the things I know that you're particularly interested in is a play-based curriculum and intervention. And that's a piece of work that we've been very interested in Scotland. We have a Play Pedagogy Award, which is about a whole school, at the moment primary school, obviously still wanted to get into secondary schools, but a whole school approach to play pedagogy, play-based learning. And could you tell us something about your research in this area and your findings, and what advice you might give us as to how to keep that work going and how to extend it maybe into an older age range?
So play-based curriculum is trying to using play to meet the educational goals, educational outcomes. So it is kind of planned and a little bit structured, but I would say there's a varying degree of how much of planning is actually should happen in the play-based curriculum. So in our study, the first thing that you have to know is how much and when that teachers can actually intervene or involved in the play. So we actually have to teach the role of teachers first and their observational skills. So in the play-based curriculum, so teacher can plan, let's say for literacy, what kind of vocabulary they can teach, or maybe alphabet letters. And then they try to teach those in a way that not really direct or formal, but more of implicit way. So when children play, when you see the children playing well, but if you see the opportunity that is teachable moment, then the teacher can jump in and kind of talk about their vocabulary and use that word. So, I'm using a stethoscope. I see you're using a stethoscope. Maybe children doesn't know what the stethoscope is while they're playing, they're using it. So teacher can talk about, doctor, what are you doing? What are you using? And what is that? What does it do? And when child doesn't know, teacher can kind of explain the stethoscope. So you can listen to the heart. It tells us whether the patient is sick or not. So once you provide that information, children can take on and they can use that knowledge when they play with other children. So that's the one example of a play-based curriculum. There has been debate in the U.S. how much teachers' intervention or involvement should happen. And I think that is still going to be a debate. But for me, I think children need different kinds of play experience, various types of play experience. There is solo play, cooperative play, playing with their peers, but also some experience playing with adults or playing with the teachers are probably not a bad idea. And they also learn from a lot of different kinds of play partners. So in that sense, I think teacher involvement during the play-based curriculum can actually facilitate their learning.
I so agree with you. And I think sometimes people think that if teachers are promoting play, they're basically getting themselves maybe some time off to let the children play. But in actual fact, it's really hard. I think it's much more challenging for teachers to facilitate play and develop their curriculum goals. And what findings have you had in your research about the support and training that teachers in early years need, and what recommendations would you make around that?
Yeah, the training is really critical. I don't think you should just let teachers to play and see what happens. From my research, I learned a lot of teachers actually don't know how to play with the children and how to involve without redirecting too much and without intervening their play. So I think the training part is really important. Here in Delaware, I actually developed the play training. It is a 10-hour training. So there's a 2-part of a group training. There's 3 hours for each. So 6 hours of a group training. We meet on a different weeks. And then the 4 hours were for reflective practice. So we actually ask teachers to videotape or at least get like photos of their playing with the children. And then they come back as a group and can talk about what was the knowledge that we are able to support, but also talked about what are the things that I did to know I could do better. So I think those kind of a reflective practice is really key. So you can actually see whether my involvement, my intervention actually support or hinder the child play. So the key is really follow the child play. I think we should all aware that in play intervention, children are free to accept and reject. And it's also part of their learning. I think it's really important to know that teachers also accept child, sometimes reject or accept their suggestion. And children also knows consequences of their choices. So the training piece is, I think, really important. One sad thing that I learned over time is in many of the early childhood classrooms, early childhood teacher preparation programs, they used to have a course on play. So for example, I had 2 courses on play in practice when I was in college, but a lot of early childhood teacher preparation programs are not getting rid of those courses, and instead they talk about play as part of a introduction class or curriculum courses. So there isn't really like standalone play courses. I think that's a huge mistake. There's so much thing, the foundational knowledge and skills that teachers should actually learn so they can become a more successful facilitator of the play intervention. So that is another, I think, training that we needed at the pre-service teacher program, and also in-service teacher program is important. So the 10-hour training that I mentioned is for the in-service teacher training.
One of the things that we're very keen on in Scotland is outdoor play, despite the shocking weather that we have on a regular basis. And is that a big issue with you in Delaware? Are children maybe more likely to be indoors, sedentary, maybe supervised at all times? Would that be a cultural trend in Delaware?
No, definitely lack of outdoor play. It has been an issue. So actually in our university, we have the lab preschool, which was indoor for a long time. But recently, about several years ago, we actually changed one of the classrooms to totally nature-based classroom. So I think the interest on the importance of the nature education, being outdoor, is definitely rising, especially since the COVID pandemic, and it definitely has gained more attention. So we are actually seeing more and more schools interested in creating more outdoor-based curriculum or nature-based preschool. Our lab schools, nature-based preschool, is amazing. So they actually do spend, these children, 3-4 years old children, they spend outdoor all day, regardless of the weather, whether it's rainy or snowy. So I would say that's probably very unique, I think, school compared to other nature schools in the state.
And interestingly, we have that development going on here. And I think there's maybe up to 50 outdoor nurseries now in Scotland. And I do worry a bit about those children when they have to come inside to the traditional school setting. Classroom ready for them is the fact that they're curious, independent learners, used to being outside and doing lots of things in all weathers. And I do wonder about their adjustment to coming inside, and having to sit down for large parts of the day and be a different type of learner. So I don't know how that works in Delaware. Is it a transition that allows children to move from that environment into the more sedentary style of learning?
That's a very good question. We don't have any research data on the children from our nature-based preschools, but just speak from my experience raising my own daughter. So I actually sent my daughter to alternative schools until elementary. So she finished until 6th grade in alternative schools in Delaware. And that was a school, actually, there is no testing and there's no, it's very project-based, but students has at least 5 times of recess outside during the school time, and there's no even like a grade. It's a kind of mixed age. There's big 3 groups, but mixed age alternative elementary schools. So she went there, and then I was actually curious how she would do in like a typical settings, very academically oriented schools. So for her middle school, she went to the totally opposite school, very much academic focused and very well known for high achievers in Delaware. So she went to that kind of schools and she adjusted really well. And I was so my worries, she makes me my worry disappeared. One thing that I learned from her, I think she learned about this adaptability. I think this flexibility, adaptability, she immediately noticed, Mom, this school is very different. This school is very different. There's more of sedentary work. Absolutely, there's more expectation, more homework. Definitely more homework in the schools. But she, I think, accepted that there's a different kinds of school. And she did pretty well in the school, so surprisingly.
Perhaps because of the resilience that she had learned from being out.
Yes.
And managing different environments, whether it was wet, cold, sunny, different features in the environment.
And one thing that I found it interesting is actually she didn't think this school was harder than her previous school. I think that's really important to remember. In very unstructured, like play-based, project-based schools, you actually need to work really hard. I really think play is not easy. A lot of people think play is a frivolous, kind of easy activity, but I don't think that is true. And that also goes back to my early memory about play experience. I know that I had this passion for the play because I knew that playing well with other children and playing well within and being able to create your own playing is not easy work. It is really hard things. Think about you have to plan what to play and how to play, what to use, who you want to play. And during that time, you also have to think about what others think about. So in order to have a really good play experience, there's tons of cognitive, social, emotional skills. You have to use it. And it is really, I think, cognitively, socially demanding work in a way. I use the expression work, but the beauty of it is you don't think of it as a work. You think it is a play because it's fun. It gives you some kind of a positive effect.
But as you say, it is hard work, the negotiation with others when you want to take charge and do it your way. And I think if you're trying to build a den, it is actually physically exhausting as well. So
yes.
I think you're right. And I do worry that some people still think it is frivolous, and when we're pushing this play-based pedagogy, that there's a misunderstanding that it's, children are doing their own learning. But actually, I feel it's actually harder for the teachers because it's actually much more difficult than that. And it takes us into a different paradigm that I don't think we actually fully understand. And it's definitely not part of teacher education, mainstream teacher education. And I think that's something that we still need to catch up with and prepare teachers better for this classroom experience where play-based learning and curriculum is used as a tool to try and enhance children, young people's curiosity and creativity, which is what it's really about. We talk about learning, but what do we mean by learning? I think it's about stimulating this curiosity and creativity and drive within young people to improve, to learn and to develop. And I do worry that we're not giving them the right skills because we don't really understand play, which takes us back to the ambiguity of play and Brian Sutton-Smith, because it isn't just something that's actually easily understood.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way too. I don't think US is also teaching play. I think play has been taken out of the curriculum. So some of my examples are because we were doing the research. So a lot of this has happened as a part of the research, but I don't think it actually went through the public education. So yeah, I also worry a lot about that. And I think that we are already seeing the results of the consequences of the lack of play in childhood. No, I can literally see that the rise of this mental illness among the adults. These are the generation who went under the No Child Left Behind in the U.S. that they have not had enough play experience in schools, and you can see that the rise of mental illness like the anxiety or depression, and these young adults are giving up things pretty easily. So I think there's pretty good correlation between the deficiencies of play and rise of mental illness.
I would agree with that, but I think actually it's important that incredibly important that people like yourself do the research, because it's one thing to think it and see it and analyse it intuitively. It's much more important that we get the peer-reviewed research that tells us this is what is happening. This is a correlation. It's not your imagination. It's not anecdotal. And I think that's why it's so great that these awards are given out to recognise the research being done, because it is so, so important. And without it, I don't think we will change policy and practice and take away from the kind of postcode lottery, we call it here, of which children will get a good play-based learning experience and which ones won't. And we really want it for every child. We want it mainstreamed. And I think without the research, we're never going to get that, because the people that fund the education want to see the outcomes, want to see the hard evidence about how this impacts on outcomes and delivers outcomes for young people. And you're right, I think that anxiety in young people is something that we've never really experienced before. We can all have our own theories on it and pet theories on it, but actually we really do need the research that tells us what's happening. Is a lack of resilience that hasn't come from playing sociably with other groups of children? Is it access to too much news? Is it before you're ready to actually, understand it, and too much exposure to things you can't have any control over? There must be lots of reasons for what this anxiety, what's producing this anxiety. And I think we need it so we could be research, so we can support the teaching workforce, but also the parents, because we don't want them being so anxious that they won't let the children have these play experiences. And it just feels that this is a really good time for your research to come out. So what would you change if you could change? Maybe what would the 3 things be that you would change in early years education and primary school?
Oh, that's a big question. One thing that I think what's happening in current society is there's the expectation of being smart early. I think people recognize the child who's reading early, who can count numbers early, are recognized as a smart children. But I think that's really dangerous. I think the notion is dangerous. So I think doing actually a lot about assessment, because really focuses on outcomes only. But I think childhood really should be the period that the process is more important than the outcomes. And children should be given a lot of time to just focusing on process over the product. So I would say, in my idea, maybe schools is we don't do much of assessment during early years, but really provide them a lot of free play time, and there's resources for children to play, but not too much. And I also believe that too much resources, like too much toys, and those actually could hinder the child's healthy play behavior. Play is something that you create from your own imagination. I really want child to have using a lot of imagination. The one thing that I remember from my early play experiences, I used to love the Pippi the Longstocking. I'm not sure if you know that program.
Oh, yes. She's a great favorite. Yes.
I was a big fan of Pippi the Longstocking, and I was always doing a lot of pretend play, pretending to be the Pippi and explore the world. I think that has some impact on me. I was open to other culture or being in other countries or adventures. So I immigrated to the U.S. about 30 years ago, and I was fine with it. Some people had a really hard time during the immigration, but I think that my adventurous mindset has set from probably my very early years by watching and then pretending to be the PP. So I think children have to be given a lot of opportunity for using their imagination. And of course, I think teaching them, I do think it is important to give them some literacy and math skills, but not to formal didactic way, but more of informal, really having them to find the reasons. Why do I need to learn language? Why do I need to learn literacy? So I think teaching them through the play context would be great. Another thing that I wish is, I also think it's very important to have a moral education. I think what's wrong, what's right. Sometimes we don't teach that at school. So I think a good moral and ethics education during early childhood is also very important. I think that's the part and you don't see in any of the standard or outcomes or assessment in school. But I think to be a healthy society, thinking about the long term, what you learn about what's right, what's not right during the early childhood really impact in the long term. So I think that's the way to create a healthy society.
I think you're right. That aspect of being friendly and what is acceptable behavior and what isn't acceptable behavior, it is so important to establish that very early on, because we hear a lot from teachers now who seem to be exposed to a lot of violence in the classrooms. And you wonder if there was more attention paid to these behaviours earlier on, if that would help alleviate some of that. And I think because of the smartphones and all the IT we've got now, I do think it is important that young people understand from an early age, again, what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable, because some of the behaviours that we see about the inappropriate use of phones and taking inappropriate pictures of people, I think that could be changed. But I notice even in my 3-year-old granddaughter, she'll pick up anything that looks like a phone, whether it's a small diary or a piece of paper or something, and hold it up to her ears as if it was a phone. They're pretending it's a phone. And so at that stage when they're pretending it's to be a phone, I think it is easy then to maybe start to say, well, this is what we do with a phone, this is what we don't do with a phone. And she'll stand at one end of the kitchen to me and she'll shout, send me a picture, as if I'm sending it, So I pick up something equally silly and pretend I'm sending the picture across. But for yourself, who have been the people who have inspired you the most?
Oh, definitely Brian Sutton-Smith. Yes. Yeah. His work, he really stretches my thinking about play through lifespan. So in Delaware, I'm teaching a course. This is a course that I actually developed, has been teaching for about 10 years. And when I first developed this course, the title was A Play in Early Childhood. And as you can see, I've been focusing on play, importance of play in childhood and early childhood education. But over time, I've been reading his work, and I also admire the work of Peter Gray. He's the one who talks about play in relation to the mental illness. So his work and the Sutton-Smith's work has actually made me change my class. So that's why I have changed my class title to Play in Human Development, because the play is really important, not just during the childhood. It is important in every part of your development throughout life. And even now, my dad passed away 2 months ago, and actually felt that the play was important at his age as well. So, and play was the only thing that really kept his life was going. So even just right before he passed away, he had a lot of play. He had a very healthy elderly life. As soon as he woke up, he went to exercise. He played golf with his friends. And my mom and dad both had this informal social play, a lot of informal social play with their friends. I think that lifestyle at that age, even at the 80s or maybe 90s, are really important in their satisfactions. I do think play is important for every part of the life course, and Sutton-Smith was the one who really influenced me on that.
We totally agree with you on that. And I'm very sorry for the loss of your dad. But very much in our new Play Vision Statement and Action Plan in Scotland, we do have statements in there about it being a lifelong experience. Play should be a lifelong experience and the benefit of that. And I think there's greater recognition as we do get older and that people start to understand the complexity of play more, that it is what keeps us healthy and sane almost during our adult life when we're trying to spin all the plates and balance everything and all the pressures. But again, even more importantly, when we retire and we have to work a bit harder, maybe, just as we do in childhood, to build up social networks and to find playful outlets of things to do and to keep busy. And when you look at a child at play and you look at their posture and their energy, you do need that coordination, physical literacy, hand-eye coordination, ball skills. And also really simple things like singing and nursery rhymes. And I know my mother, grandmom to my children, she would sit for hours and colour in with them. And I just saw it as such a waste of time. I'd be like, right, okay, let's put all that away and let's do. And now I think how wonderful that was and how therapeutic it probably was for her as and as enjoyable for her as it was for the young ones at the time. And that slow pace of just being and doing and enjoying that, I think when you're the manic adult running about trying to get everything sorted, you forget about. So I agree with you. I think it's a lifelong journey. And I'm just so glad to hear that your dad enjoyed his play throughout his whole life and gave you those opportunities as a child yourself to have that playful start in life. Well, Myae, thank you so much for the lovely, stimulating conversation we've had today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us on the podcast series. And I look forward to reading some of the research that you've been talking about today. Thank you very much for being with us.
It was a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your preferred app. To find out more about Play Scotland, please follow us on Blue Sky and visit our website at playscotland.org.